Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Anthony Hennon, Pennsylvania reporter for the Center Square. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania editor, Kristen Smith. Kristen, we have seen a vast growth of warehousing across the Commonwealth, and some environmental groups have started being concerned and sounding the alarm about the impact. What exactly is happening here?
Warehousing is quickly becoming one of our most lucrative industries in Pennsylvania. We have something like 3,300 fulfillment centers, 54,000 jobs from these buildings. The reason for that is because Pennsylvania has a lot of cheap land. We have a lot of labor that is suited to this work, and developers love that we're within a day's drive of 40% of the population. So it's a really prime place for these big companies to come and build warehouses. The problem is that our existing zoning ordinances, and this is according to environmental groups, our existing ordinances never really contemplated facilities of this size. And there are some very basic things here that environmental groups say are wrong. For example, using the term warehouse is kind of deceptive because a warehouse implies long-term storage of goods, where we all know that these facilities, this logistics and distribution facilities, do a lot more than storage. And so the idea or the thought here is that when you bring in these big facilities, you're bringing in traffic congestion, you're bringing in, land use concerns, storm runoff, increased air pollution from the traffic. There's just a lot of things that environmental groups say are unfortunate side effects of what has been an economic boom for our state.
So I see that Penn Future has now offered a framework for local officials to consider how to deal with these warehouses and the zoning restrictions that comes with it. What exactly does that look like, and how would that affect businesses? How would that affect local residences?
So the idea with Penn Future's model ordinance is that there are some very simple changes they're proposing. For example, the definition of warehouse needs to be tightened up. They want more consideration to the size of these facilities and their impact on the land around them. Perhaps, understanding the planning of these facilities. I think there's a leap to sometimes approve these projects because it brings jobs and it keeps people in an area that is otherwise economically struggling. However, a little bit more thought and planning into the actual building and how it impacts the land around it. Penn Future says this would go a long way to protecting the environment and to reducing some of these negative side effects. Then there's another issue. Often when developers choose to build warehouses, they don't have a company in mind to then take over that warehouse. And so that sometimes leads to a disconnect between the warehouse's actual capabilities and what the end user wants to do with the warehouse. And so sometimes that can cause a conflict as far as, again, the negative side effects of these sorts of situations, because Penn Future is saying, and in conjunction with our Poconos Water, which is another environmental group that is, focused on the Lehigh Valley, where a lot of this growth has been. And they're saying, just the emissions from the increased truck traffic alone, it causes, contributes to climate change. It increases respiratory illness. It hurts trees. It hurts vegetation. It's in the water. So there is a real incentive from their point to do something about this. And policymakers at the local level have been quite receptive to this. But as you can imagine, there are concerns. The Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry says, they agree that we need to be environmental stewards, that we need to make sure and be careful about how we plan these facilities. But this guidebook, this ordinance that they proposed, it goes too far. And essentially it's going to destroy the good that we've built as far as this economic industry here. And that developers simply will just stop building here if they have to follow the rules that are in Penn Future's ordinance.
Well, this is a topic that will not go away anytime soon for Pennsylvania. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Kristen Smith, this is Anthony Hennon. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.